today we have the Studying Medicine Abroad panel. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Namita Mehta, and I'm the president of the Red Pen. The Red Pen is an independent education consulting company, and we've been around for over 9 years now. We work with students and families at all levels of your educational journey. As you can see on the screen, we work with students at the early advising, so students in 8th grade and above, at the undergrad level, postgrad level, MBA level, and of course, boarding and day schools as well. And we have a team that is located all over the world, and they do take advantage of their location to really find out about the universities, understand what each university has to offer, so that we can then come back to you and help you find the best fit. We are a member of professional organizations like AGAC and IECA and IACAC, and this really helps us to stay up to date with the ever-changing educational landscape, especially with all the changes that are happening right now. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce my panelists. There's Raashi Shah and Anjali, and I'm going to ask them to say a little bit about themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Raashi. I'm now a second-year medical student at Imperial College, London. Just a bit about my background. I'm from Mumbai. I did the IB diploma in high school from Dhirubhai Ambani. And I'm currently studying a 6-year MBBS and BSc intercalated program at Imperial.
Go ahead and introduce myself. Hi guys, I'm Anjali. I did the ISC board back in the 11th and 12th. So I was in Bombay Scottish till the 10th grade. And then I moved to Cathedral for the 11th and 12th grade, where I took PCMB as my subjects for ISC. And I'm currently a rising junior at the University of Michigan studying molecular, cellular, and developmental biology.
Thank you, Raashi, and thank you, Anjali. So we have a set of questions that we've prepared in advance that we feel will that many of you would want to know about. Raashi and Anjali's experience studying medicine and about the application process and how they've chosen particular courses and how they're faring. So we're going to get through those questions first, after which we will be willing to answer any of the questions that you have. Please feel free to write your questions in the Q&A box, and we will definitely get to them. We've allocated enough time to answer your questions, so thank you. Okay, so let's get started. UK, like India, you really have to be sure about what you want to study. You cannot change your major when you get onto a campus. So what gave you the conviction to apply for medicine, and how did you know that you wanted to be a doctor?
That's actually a question I get a lot, which I don't have a particular answer for. Like, I don't think I had like a big origin story which made me like want to become a doctor or something like that. Like, many people have those like interesting stories.
Aha moments, right? Like they have those stories or those aha moments, like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah,
this is what I want to do. Yeah,
exactly. And I don't think I had that. I just kind of wanted to help people from the beginning. I know it's a really lame cliche thing. Everyone wants to help people. But I think it was about the 7th or the 8th standard where I kind of I kind of knew I wanted to become a doctor. And also I think maybe it's because I was just really good at like biology and chemistry, and I was like, maybe that's where I'm going in life. But I think where it really solidified was in the 10th grade, like summer break, where I did like a voluntary like internship sort of thing, you could call it, at one of the hospitals. And that's when I kind of realized, like, I shadowed doctors for a bit, and I just generally experienced the healthcare environment. And that's when I really like was sure this is what I want to do. I want to become a doctor. But I kind of had the idea for a while. I don't know why. I just did, to be honest. But the thing that I think is really important is you need to be sure, because like you said, you can't change your major once you get there. And it's quite a commitment for like a 18-year-old to have, or like a 19-year-old to have in their lives, like where they're like, yes, I want to do this for the next 5 to 6 years, and I can't change them, then I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of my life. It's quite a commitment, so you have to be sure one way or another, I think.
I think that's really true, Raashi, especially in the UK, because you can enter the medical, you can enter medicine studies right after you finish the 12th grade. And you can't do that in the US or in Canada directly. You can't enter medicine directly. In fact, there are postgraduate degrees in the US. But in the UK, it isn't. And yes, you're right. Like, you really have to know. In fact, you have to know early on, like you mentioned, because you need to make sure that you've taken the right subjects and that you've gotten the right experience. And be able to demonstrate those skills, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because to apply, you do need particular subjects. Like if you don't have chemistry, I know for IB, if you don't have chemistry HL, you're just not eligible to apply. And you also need, like, it's not a prerequisite that's written down, but it's an understanding that you do need experience in the healthcare field, and not in terms of just shadowing a doctor, but just generally any kind of experience that, oh yeah, you have a question about the application process. Maybe I'll continue it then.
No, go ahead. I mean, I was just going to move to it. So, you did mention that I want you to talk a little bit about the application process to medical programs in the UK. I mean, you've been through it. You're obviously very successful. But I just wanted to point out to the audience here that in the UK, there's about 330 seats for non-UK residents for medicine annually. So it's a very small pool. It's very, very competitive. In fact, I'm going to embarrass Raashi here a little bit, but she was the only student from India to be admitted to Imperial College for medicine in her year group. She reached out to the admissions team and said, "Hey, can you introduce me to any other medics that are going to be coming to Imperial this fall?" And this is last year, and they emailed her back to say, "You're the only one that we accepted." So you can tell that it's very, very competitive, and there is a quota, because the medical programs in the UK are essentially trying to educate doctors who are eventually going to join the National Health Service in the UK. So if you do want to study medicine in the UK and you're not a British resident, you are going to be competing competing for a very small number of seats. So Raashi, congratulations on that. And if you can just tell us a little bit about your experience in the application process and how you were able to stand out, I think that'll be very valuable to our attendees.
Yeah, thank you. I think one thing I just really quickly want to point out is that it's not that the universities hate us, which is why we have a quota. I think it's the government, and the government doesn't hate us. They're just trying to encourage more like UK residents and citizens to apply because they want them in their workforce later on. That being said, I think because of COVID, things might change, and I'm not sure about it, and I don't want to comment on it. But that's what I was talking to one of the international admissions officer at Imperial, and he was saying that things might change because we don't know what the government will do now. So I'm sorry, because of Brexit, not COVID. What am I saying? That being said, the admissions process. So like you said, it's really, really competitive as an international student. That being said, it's not impossible. So I don't think anyone should get disheartened by it. You need to have really strong academic basis. It's definitely, the UK system in general is definitely a lot more academically focused and driven in comparison to Canada and the US, where they look at a more holistic application in terms of like your extracurriculars and things like that. It's not looked at, but I think your academics are like really important. It starts off with just having good grades. You need to have chemistry, HL, and there are a bunch of prerequisite subjects you need to have in high school. Otherwise, you're just not eligible to apply. So you need to make sure you have those. You need to have like good academics, and then you need to give a bunch of exams as well, either the UCAT or the BMAT, or both. And it's like, I think the equivalent of an SAT or ACT for anyone who doesn't know. It's just like a standardized exam that people going to the UK for medicine need to give, just so that they can use those marks to rank you in a certain way. Other than that, you need to have a really strong personal statement. And need to have a story about why you want to do medicine, because they read like thousands and thousands of applications with like the same stuff. So you need to be genuine in your application because they know when you're ingenuine. Like I said, I don't have a particular aha moment that made me want to do medicine. So, but my story was still genuine and my interest was genuine. And I guess they grasp that, and they grasp that for most people who are applying. So your personal statement, which is your essay that you need to write, needs to be really strong in terms of your commitment to medicine, which needs to be demonstrated. So the way I demonstrated it was, I had over 2 summer breaks, I did like a shadow experience and like a voluntary experience at hospitals. You don't have to be in like a fancy hospital shadowing a fancy doctor and get a fancy letter of recommendation from them. They know you're able to do that. And obviously because of COVID now, and even in general, not everyone has those kind of opportunities. So as long as you demonstrate it in some way or another, like you can go to a hospital and help them with their meal planning timetables, and just interact with children, patients, and play games with them. Like, it doesn't have to be a medical thing, but as long as you can just show you're passionate, that's really important. And your commitment is important in terms of, many people ask me if they should do this extra course online and if that will look good on their application. I'm like, do it if you want to do it. And when you're doing it, and of course, if you want to do it, you write about it, but write about why you wanted to do it and then you did it and what you learned about it, and not just that you did it, because that doesn't matter as much as why. Okay, I think I just went off tangent.
No, I think you answered really well, Raashi. Can you tell us about what you did? I think that would be really valuable because you did some really interesting work. And if you can maybe talk a little bit about your extended essay as well, that would be fantastic. Because I think one thing to note is that, British universities really value some kind of research in applicants as well. So if you're an IB diploma student and you've engaged in research, whether it's through the extended essay or you've done it externally outside school, that really does show to them that you know that rigorous process. And Raashi, I want you to tell them what some of the care work that you did.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, research was quite important. I didn't do any like external research, anything. I just did what I had to do for my extended essay as an IB student. And I did mention that. And a thing to really keep in mind is whatever you mention, when you go for your interview, like if you get selected for an interview and you go there, they will mention it and they will ask you like questions about it. So don't do anything or don't say anything you've not actually done and aren't knowledgeable and confident about to answer them. Like, many people say they're going to do like this research and that research, but they don't really know what's going on because they're just part of like a much, much larger group. So yeah, that's one thing. And in terms of my caregiving experience, what I did is, like, okay, in the UK, they have a very specific pathway they can take when they want to apply for medical school. They can there's a thing on the NHS portal or something that home students do, and they can, as people who want to become medical students to get experience, they have a very specific pathway they can use. But there's nothing really like that in India that I'm aware of. Like, you just have to kind of email hospitals and say what you want. They might give you weird looks, being like, "You're 15, why do you want to do this?" But that's literally how I did it. I didn't know anybody or anything. I just emailed a bunch of hospitals around me and said, "This is who I am. This is why I want to do this. And if there's anything you can help me out with," like, I emailed the HR departments, and many of them just never replied. And I got called back by a few of them, and they said, "Okay, you can just do this." But they didn't have any specific pathway thing. I would just show up and they'd be like, "Okay, so what do you want to do exactly?" And I'm like, anything. And I would just be on wards. I would help nurses around. I would find my own thing to do because I feel like they didn't have a particular structure, curriculum for me to do, shadow this doctor today and that doctor tomorrow. You just have to take it up in your own hands and be like.
But that's quite amazing. That's really amazing, Raashi. I'm really surprised that hospitals actually responded to you. So you literally just went to several hospitals and shadowed nurses. I mean, what did you do, or did you actually interact with the patients? Like, if you can just share a little bit more with us.
Okay, so at my first experience, I shadowed a bunch of doctors from different departments. So each week I would do one department. So I got through 5 or 6 departments. I did emergency medicine. I did sports and rehabilitation. One day I was in 1 week I was in the outpatient clinic. 1 week I was in radiology. And every time you get there, people are going to wonder, why the hell are you here and what is your purpose? So you just kind of have to keep explaining it and saying you're passionate and ask for work and be like, if you're sitting with a doctor at radiology and they're looking at scans, you're not going to understand anything. I don't understand anything. You just kind of have to ask questions and not piss them off at the same time. And kind of just
be proactive.
Experience that way. Yeah, be proactive. That's the word. And when I was on rounds, I would interact with patients quite a bit, but it would mostly be not medical related. I would just chill with them a bit. I'll get to know their life, their names, what's up with them. Not what's up with them in terms of their health, just what's up with them in general. How long have they been here for? What's their plan? If they're kids, I ask them what's their plan in life? What do they want to do? And if they're really small, I would play Uno with them for hours. And you get to really bond with the patient. And that was really, really nice, because I don't think as a medical student now, when I'm in medical school and I'm meeting patients, that's not really the case. You're more interacting with them at a more professional level, but yours was more like personal, and that was really, really nice. And on my second summer break, when I did my second voluntary thing, that was not really doctor interaction at all. It was at a children's hospital, so I was just playing with kids all day, and like I would help them organize like art seminars and yoga seminars, and at the same time I would talk to the doctors about the patient's health. So it was a very holistic kind of experience for me.
Raashi, thanks so much for sharing that. I think it's so important that you mentioned this because I think what medical schools in the UK are looking for is exactly this. They want students who are compassionate, who are empathetic, who are eventually going to make good doctors. I mean, if you're academically able, they know you'll be able to learn the anatomy and everything else you need to know about being a doctor. But it's those skills that they need to make sure that you have from day one. You know, is this person empathetic? Is this person going to care? Does this person, can connect with the patient? And I think that's what they're really looking for. So yeah. I think, thanks so much for sharing that because it is very valuable. And a lot of students that we work with just feel that if they kind of, shadow a famous cardiologist, it's done, but it's really clearly not.
Yeah.
So this brings me to my next question, Raashi, which is, a great, leads on from what we've been talking about. And again, to make sure that you're going to be a fit doctor and, great student in the medical program, they have interviews. The UK has two kinds of interviews for prospective medical students. They do something called a mini medical and MMI, which is the mini medical interview, and they also have panel interviews. So Raashi, I believe you've done both of them. Can you quickly tell us about them and your experiences, and you can tell us what they asked as well? That would be really useful. And how you kind of approach those questions, and obviously were successful in getting through the interview, because that's the last stage before you're made an offer to study at that particular medical school. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just say something? When I had applied, you don't know when they're gonna respond to you. There's no like fixed date, like 1st April is where you get your response. You just kind of, every time your email pings, you're just waiting, like maybe that's the email where they tell me something. And I'm actually just getting throwback to when I got called for the interview, like best day of my life. But okay, no, that's besides the point.
No, I also just want to say that reaching the interview stage is also very difficult. I mean, typically you can only apply to 4 medical schools in the UK. And if you've got 2 interviewers, you're doing really well. Like, it's very hard to get more than that. Even as a British citizen or as a student in the UK, it's just really hard to reach that stage. But if you have, then there is this huge hurdle. Not everyone who's invited for an interview is given an offer. So yeah, Raashi, share your secrets.
Yeah, I know from the grapevine that some universities do interviews online. Again, I don't know with COVID what the situation is, but with me, it was, I had to go to the UK for all my interviews, and I could choose the date. So luckily it just happened in one trip for me. When I got there, I had Imperial was my only panel interview, and I had 2 other interviews which were MMI. I prepared for them just by firstly like going online and finding what an MMI is and what kind of questions do they ask. And it's kind of similar for most universities, where they have like 7 or 8 stations, and you rotate between each station for like 5 to 7 minutes. They have like a buzzer and you can move on. It's like a speed dating sort of thing. And at each station, they try to gauge a particular aspect of you. So at one station, they might just be about your personal statement. One station might be like an empathy sort of role play situation. At one, it might be your like some other kind of skill, or like your teamwork skill. And that happened at each station, and you move around. So that was the MMI for me. So I just kind of firstly understood the format and what I should expect in like briefly. And the panel interview is the MMI. Like, it's the same kind of questions, like the same role play and the same personal statement, the same everything, but just all together for like 20, 25, 30 minutes with a panel of people instead of just 1 or 2 people at each station. So that was the interview. Do you want me to answer anything particular about them?
No, I think that's great. Thank you, Raashi, for sharing all that information. It's been super useful. We'll come back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm now going to move on to Anjali. So Anjali is currently a student at the University of Michigan, and she's going to be majoring in genetic counseling. So Raashi, Anjali, you decided not to apply to medical school in the UK, in the US, because you can do that as a postgraduate degree only in the US. So can you please tell us, why you decided, and tell us more about, what genetic counseling is about and how that kind of integrates into the health space?
Yeah, I'm going to start off by really just giving you guys an introduction of what genetic counseling is, because I've realized that not many people know about it. Genetic counseling is really, the advising and counseling of patients who might have or who already have genetic disorders. So if you think of things like Huntington's, genes and hereditary disorders. So, I don't know if I'm going into too much detail, but, so you have a sequence of, base pairs, nucleotides, whatever, and a simple base pair alteration can lead to a genetic disorder. So genetic counseling is really diving into that and treating those individuals and telling, informing them about genetic counseling, genetic testing, and really giving them all their treatment options. That's a little bit about genetic counseling. And genetic counselors really interact with a lot of health professionals. So they're really in touch with, they're in contact with doctors and other health professionals. So even though it might not be medicine, it might not be you being a doctor and you having, the doctor title in front of your name, I think it's great because you still interact, you're thrown straight into the health field. I'm not a genetic counselor yet, but I think it's amazing and I'm super excited for it. So the reason I did not decide to apply for medical school. So this was definitely, it took me a while to decide I didn't want to do medicine. I really took a lot of time to explore my options. And being in the US, you obviously have so many options. You can be a physician's assistant, you can do medicine, you can do pharmacy, you can do genetic counseling. So I really took my time in college to really explore all my options. And I think it came down to, do I want to do medicine or not? This was at first. And then I realized that my love for genetics is definitely more than my love for anatomy. I was definitely interested more in genetics and the problem solving of genetics than anatomy. So that's one of the main reasons I wanted to do genetic counseling. And for people thinking about medical school, I definitely want to put this across. When I was exploring my options and considering medicine as a profession, being an international student at a US institution who's going to be applying to medical school is not easy. It's definitely because, it's really hard to get federal loans because you're not a citizen. So that option is out and medical school is insanely expensive. So, you really need to have the finances to pay for that. And there's definitely scholarships and everything, but that was one of the reasons, And then my second reason was that international students, they don't really take too many international students for medical school. I would say, maybe 3 or 4. And I'm not discouraging people from applying to medical school once they come to the US to do undergrad. I'm just letting you guys know the process I went through and, the pros and the cons of considering this as a profession. But I think overall, I spent this summer deciding that I don't want to do medicine. I was researching my options and I came across genetic counseling and I absolutely loved it because, I love genetics. And yeah, that's kind of how my journey went. It really went from what do I not want to do to stumbling across genetic counseling and realizing that, this is really the thing that I want to do. And just to clarify, it's a 2 years master's program after undergrad.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Anjali. I mean, Raashi mentioned at the beginning, in the UK, you pretty much start studying medicine the minute you hit the university. I mean, that's all you do. But in the US, you're in a pre-med program. You're studying something. You are also at the same time required to take other general education requirements before you can major in a particular pre-med subject like a biology or biological sciences or genetic counseling. So can you please tell us about 2 courses that you've taken so far and why they were particularly interesting, and how did that help you decide that you really wanted to study genetic counseling? I think that's just the real beauty about studying in the US, that you get those 2-3 years of flexibility. And it's really not like, as an 8th grade or 9th grade student, you need to make up your mind that you want to do something in the health space or become a doctor. You have a little bit of time to figure this out. So tell us about your journey and, in particular, like, the courses that you took that were like, wow, okay, this is kind of what I want to do, or this is like a field that I really want to go into. If you can give us specific information about that.
Yeah, I think, so this is really interesting because doing ISC in Cathedral, you obviously didn't get, unless you did APs, you didn't get credit for the classes you took. So even though I did physics, chemistry, math, and biology in ISC, I didn't get credit for any of those. So I went in having already done a lot of the intro class material. So I took Intro to Molecular, Cellular, and Developmental Biology, and I really went in and I was like, like, I know this stuff. I've already done it in high school. Like, I got it. And I was familiar with the material, but I think what was super interesting is just, the beauty of the US and the way they teach it. I definitely felt that back home, it was more of, memorization. And, do you know this? Do you not? If you haven't memorized it, an 80-mark exam is going to determine whether you do well in the class or not. But this was really different because they really, really tested your application. And, so it was a very different experience for me because I was learning the same thing that I did in school, but just in such a different way that I just started loving it even more. I loved biology, I loved chemistry in school, but I started loving it even more when I did it in college because it was taught so differently. And obviously it was Intro to Molecular Biology, and molecular biology plays a huge part in genetic counseling. So just, studying topics in that, I really, really realized that I love genetics, I love molecular biology. So that was definitely one course that was super interesting because it was just taught in such a different way and really opened my eyes up to how much I love biology and how much I want to go into this profession. And then the second course, I think, so these were two courses I took over the course of the year, but I took organic chemistry. And again, I'm not going to touch on this too much because it was the same with biology and chemistry, but they taught organic chemistry very differently in school and in college. In college, it was definitely more of problem solving, honestly.
Understanding, right? Where those electrons go rather than memorizing it.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. It's not, you need to memorize a mechanism. In high school, I literally had things where I would have to memorize a mechanism, and it's not anyone's fault, it's just the system of education sometimes. But I would have to memorize mechanisms, and I would just be so blank because I'd never understand it sometimes. And I was like, okay, this is weird, like, why don't I get it? But it's so crazy because when you come to college, they teach you exactly how it works, and you're not going to get the same thing in the exam as you did while studying in class. They're going to give you something completely different. You need to use your problem solving skills and your analyzing to figure it out yourself. And I really loved that. I really loved the problem solving aspect of it. And that actually plays a huge role in genetic counseling because genetic counseling is a relatively new profession that's definitely more developed in the US, but less developed. And it's growing more in India. So just the problem solving, because so many syndromes and genetic disorders are still unknown. It's not like we have everything already. Researchers and doctors are finding new and new syndromes, and they really don't know how to approach it. And I think that's where your problem solving skills come in. You're really presented with things that you might not be familiar with, and you need to figure it out yourself. And I think that problem solving aspect of genetic counseling really makes it so exciting. And, I know that I'd never be bored at my job because I always have something new to look forward to. And I think organic chemistry definitely contributed to that.
Yeah, I think, genetic counseling is, it's a new field, we're learning about it. And it's really about, those genetic patterns that can allow you to decide whether whether a certain disease is going to kind of come up or not. And there's so much exploration in that space. So it's exciting, I can imagine. Okay, so a question on research, Anjali. I mean, we all talk about that. We've spoken about, Raashi mentioned about doing some kind of research in high school even. The extended essay in the IB is a form of research. And especially in the STEM health, pre-health, subjects that you're studying, research is very important. And it's kind of an integral part of the degree. I think even at Imperial or as a pre-med major, it's part of your degree. But can you tell us a little bit about some of the research that you would have done and what opportunities there were at on your campus?
Yeah, so I think one of the main research projects that I'm working on in my lab, and this is obviously, I couldn't do it this semester because of Corona, and they're not allowing undergraduates in the lab, but I work in the MCDB department, and I work in this lab which really focuses on analyzing aging disorders. So, Alzheimer's is a great example, and that's something we're working at. So I actually work with worms, C. elegans worms as model organisms to really see patterns in lifespans. And we're relating lifespans to polyphosphate, and we're really trying to see the relation between the two, more levels of polyphosphate. Does that mean that they're going to age quicker, or are they going to age later? So I wanted a little bit of detail, but that's kind of the main research project I'm focusing on. So that's the main research I'm doing on campus. And also I recently joined this student club actually called Genes and Diseases and Symptoms, and we are taking a different approach to Corona. So we're using tRNA And I'm not very familiar with the details because I'm still getting oriented with the project, but we are really using tRNA to see, to take a different approach to corona and, hopefully pass that research on to someone much more experienced, I think, so that they can, do further research with the information that we have really provided them. So I think that would be the main research on campus. And I definitely have some advice when it comes to this. I would say, it's in terms of, a lot of people don't know how to get, also, I'm sorry, I might switch to my phone really quick in case my laptop dies. So if you see two of me, don't be weirded out. But
That's
so
okay, Anjali.
My advice is that there's a lot of ways you can you can
research on campus. And I think that
sorry, you're echoing, Anjali, now. You might want to mute one of them.
Okay. Give me one second. Is this better?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, sorry, I just switched to my phone in case, Anyway, so what I was saying was that there are many ways to approach research on campus. So there's obviously, you have the Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program, which is basically a freshman program that freshmen who don't really have much or any experience in research can apply to. And that's a great basis because, you attend webinars, you attend talks, you get in touch with professors, and they really guide you through your research project. And that can be any research. It doesn't have to be molecular biology, it can be computer science, it can be environmental research, it can be social studies research. So you have, different topics you can choose from based on your interests. And the way I did research actually was I cold emailed a bunch of professors. Once I realized I wanted to do MCDB, I really emailed them, and each one of them, obviously I customized it. I spoke to them about their projects and why I could relate to that and why that interested me. And so one of them got back to me, the lab that I'm currently working in. And that's kind of how I found research. And my advice would be that you can definitely find research where, you're going to spend your time cleaning glassware and, organizing and really just working with paperwork. And if that's what you want to do, great. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be more hands-on. So really look for what interests you. And even after, you get in touch with them, you can definitely say something like, can I see how the first day goes? And if it's going to be a good fit for me, see what kind of experience they're getting. Because I would definitely say quality over quantity. Yes, it's great to clean glassware, but what are you really learning from that? What are you getting out of it? It's really, I think as Raashi had mentioned this before, it's not what you do, but it's what you get out of it. So I'm getting a lot out of it. I'm learning so many research techniques that, I might have known before, but now I can actually put into practice and, do hands-on.
Sometimes it's really about getting that theory into practice, right? Like when you're actually performing a PCR or gel or electrophoresis,
exactly.
Like, this is why they teach you this stuff, right? It's exciting. And I think it is also important to note that, I also have a background in life sciences, and that, sometimes it's cleaning the glassware is like a start to the process. And then, they're going to slowly give you responsibility, and then eventually you can take on a project. And it does really depend on your initiative. Like if you're going to turn up at the lab and really, make an effort to show your interest and, show that you're passionate about it, they will, obviously under supervision, they will let you experiment and even put you on a small project that you can eventually write up, right?
Yeah, definitely. I hope no one misunderstood me. I didn't mean to say that, that's something that you don't learn from. You definitely learn from it. But just make sure that you show that you're really interested in it. Like as long as you show your professors that this is something I'm really, really interested in, they'll definitely, the more proactive you are, the more opportunities you're going to get, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, I think that's how it is. I did the same thing when I was in university, and like in between my summers I applied, and usually they respond to you. Because it's a very niche field, and if you've been able to articulate yourself, and like you mentioned, Anjali, how you tailor-made those emails based on what that professor was doing research on, and you obviously read a little bit about it, that would really is useful. And then if they do call you back, or if they want to engage you, allow you in their lab, you already do have a little bit of an understanding of what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it really depends on, does that research interest you? And if it does, amazing. Don't hesitate to email someone because you're scared they're not going to get back to you. You're not losing anything from it. Don't be afraid to contact, I would say, big professors and big people, because you never know. They will get back to you, and it might, turn out to be the best experience of your life.
Yeah, that's great advice. So Anjali, can you tell us a little bit more about what you did over the last 2 summers? I mean, we all talk about making sure that your summers are proactive and that you have enough stuff on your resume. I mean, this is while you're in college, I think, which is going to obviously help you when you apply for your 2-year master's in genetic counseling. And then any other extracurricular activities that you do pursue on campus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow, this is going to be a kind of long answer, so please bear with me. So the first summer, so the end of my freshman year, I worked in a molecular biology and genetics lab at Reliance Life Sciences. Um, so that really taught me so many techniques related to molecular biology and genetics, and that definitely contributed to my interest in genetic counseling because I really knew what I was getting myself into. That exposure really helped. So what I really did in that lab, and this was a service lab, so I really didn't get to do too much hands-on work because these were real samples from real people who might have certain diseases or who might have certain conditions. And so what I focused on techniques. So techniques like gel electrophoresis, polymerase chain reaction, karyotyping, learning about chromosomes, can I identify chromosome 1 from chromosome 18? Really like learning those techniques, observing them. And just to clarify, this was a 1-month internship. And that was super helpful because it was just me and 2 other girls. And so we could really focus, there was a lot of attention given to us because it was just the 3 of us. And they really spent so much time making sure we really understand all the concepts and grasp what's really going on when it comes to the techniques like PCR and, gel electrophoresis and, cytogenetics and stuff like that. So that was super beneficial because I learned so much from it, even though it wasn't hands-on. I was just observing and I did a little bit of pipetting here and there, but I think that's the most they could actually let us do because these are real samples. But yeah, I would definitely say the one way that I really made sure I got a lot out of that was that I was taking notes every single day, and then I made a final project book. So I really made a project book with everything that I had learned, and that's been great for me because I really value reflecting on my experiences. And so that was my way of reflecting on my experience and grasping what I learned. And that's something I can definitely refer back to later on, if I want to refresh my memory and certain specifics. So that's what I did the end of freshman year. I worked in this lab. And then sophomore year, summer, which is this last summer, obviously it was Corona. So my plan was definitely to do some research in the US or volunteer in the US, but that wasn't possible because I had to fly back home. But during Corona, actually, 2 University of Michigan students started this literacy nonprofit called Humankind. And what this literacy nonprofit really focuses on is eradicating educational inequity by providing virtual tutoring. So as we know, schools were shut, and it's different for college students because, we can really adjust to online tutoring and online classes, and a lot of us are very privileged to have the resources. But we really wanted to focus on nonprofit organizations in Detroit and just Michigan in general who don't have access to these resources. They might have only one computer or 1 tablet for 50 kids. And so what we really did is we got a base of about 250 now, I think, 250 volunteers who are all Michigan students. And we got in touch with different partners. So my role in that was really outreach to different partners to form partnerships and, tell them that, we're here as students and we want to volunteer and we want to help out. And we're going to help out by providing virtual tutoring to your students who are K through 12 students. And, it might be anything from literacy and just reading to social sciences and general sciences and history and just anything, anything they need help with, we were there to help. So this was great because this was probably the best experience of my life because I learned so much when it just, you think that communicating with partners might not be that hard. But in this time of Corona and this time of crisis, the first thing that would happen when I'd get on call with a new partner was they would be so stressed because they have so many kids who are not learning and they're not sure how the fall is going to look and everything's just a mess. And it would be up to us to really console them and show that we understand what they're going through, and just try to provide solutions to ease their stress and really help them through this educational journey. And I can really tie that back to genetic counseling, actually, because in genetic counseling, you really need to be empathetic. You need to be able to understand someone's emotions and show that you understand that to develop that level of trust for them to, share things with you. So I've learned so much from it, and it's great because it's nonprofit work, it's volunteering, and we've helped around 500 students now. And, it's still going on, and it's something that I plan to do throughout the fall. So that's definitely something that I did in the summer, but I also pursued throughout, I'm going to pursue throughout university. And then I've spoken a lot about this. I'm just going to touch briefly on the other things I'm doing. I'm part of this pre-health club called Health Promotion at U of M, which is, pre-health, so pre-med, pre-PA, different genetic counseling, all that kind of stuff. And they really organize volunteer opportunities for you. So throughout the semester, I would volunteer at the Mott's Children's Hospital and do something as simple as play virtual reality games with sick kids, or, play Just Dance with sick kids. And it would be great because, in that moment, they forget about their illness or their disease, and they're just so happy, and that's so fulfilling. So I would do volunteer opportunities like that. I would do food gatherers, Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels is, you drive and you really give food to people who need it. So, they give you the food and you just need to go and deliver it. So it's something as simple as that, but it makes such a difference in people's lives. So Health Promotion at U of M is a free health club where I do all these different volunteering opportunities. And then, as I mentioned before, I'm part of Genes and Diseases and Symptoms, which is, we're focusing on different genes, different symptoms. And I'm going to be organizing this project in October, which really focuses on Alzheimer's disease. So a month of focusing on Alzheimer's disease, how it happens, what, the current research, really keeping up to date with different genes and diseases. And then humankind, as I mentioned, is one of them. So yeah, those are the extracurriculars that I do. And I'm pretty sure there are more, but these are the main ones I can think of that are really related to biology and health. And
thank you so much,
really
Anjali. I think it's such a encompassing experience that you're getting, and I think these universities really give you the opportunity to really experience all of this outside of the classroom as well. And yeah, you're doing some amazing work. Thanks so much for sharing. Okay, I'm going to move to Raashi and get her to answer the last question that we have prepared, and then I can see lots of questions coming up in the Q&A box, so we'll start addressing those. So Raashi, you just completed your first year, so can you please share your highlight? You shared this with me, and I think it's very, very touching. So please, can you just tell everybody else about what you did at your first year at Imperial as a medic?
Yeah. So my first year, like any international student's first year, was filled with a whole bunch of settling into a new culture and a new country and a whole new place in general. So most of my, I think, highlights were not academic related per se of my first year. It's fine to study and be challenged academically, but I think the thing I would take back from my first year, which was the most important and touching to me, was when I met my first patient with the capacity as a medical student. I know that can sound like it would be anyone's highlight because that's what you want to do, but I think my story is really interesting. As a first year medical student, I didn't expect to interact with a bunch of patients because we're basically we don't know much. So why would they put us in front of patients? But literally the first thing they did in my first semester was just throw us in front of a patient and expect us to not medically interact with them, but personally interact with them. So what we did was we had this program where we would visit patients that have long-term diseases at their home. So it could be COPD, or it could be Alzheimer's, or it could be any long-term condition. And they were usually old patients, and we would visit them at their place of settlement in a pair, to me with another medical student, and we would spend about an hour with them or an hour and a half with them for 3-4 days over a few months. And we would just generally get to know them, get to know what their life is like, get to know what their condition is like. We don't give out medical advice or anything, but just generally understand what the patient feels about living with an illness. And that's really important because at the end of the day, we're not treating a disease, we're treating people. And it's really important to understand a person as a person and a human being, and not just as their condition. If you do you're learning about a certain operation or a certain treatment or intervention, you learn that at the end of it, they have XYZ problem that will happen because of the treatment. If you have a surgery, people could be pooing in a bag after that for years to come. And that's just one line you write in your side effects or whatever situation, but you don't understand how much people have to actually live with that and how difficult it is or how much it affects their actual life. That's something I really got to experience as a first year medical student. And I think that experience will really stay with me. I got to know these few patients really, really well. And I think this experience was so important because now onwards in my journey as a medical student and even as a doctor, I'll always reflect back on how it was a human being, or it is a human being, and they have like a life and a whole world outside just their condition, and how their condition affects everything else. That is something I really learned from this experience, and definitely meeting those few patients was definitely my highlight of first year.
Thank you so much, Raashi, for sharing that. It's amazing that you already had that patient interaction and that it's going to be something that you're always going to remember. Okay, so let's move on to the questions and answers. I've just been kind of going through them. There's so many questions coming in. So let's do that. Raashi, I'm going to ask you to answer one of the questions, which I think is quite useful. They're asking about how much do you really need to know about the NHS if you're applying to the UK as a medical student?
Okay, so when I was applying, I thought I did, because when you look at MMI questions and just panel interview questions online, there are a bunch of questions about the NHS on it. So I did try to understand just the general structure of it's really different from the system here. So I did try to understand the general structure of the NHS and like clinical commissioning groups and like generally how the entire hierarchy works, how the system is, what would happen if I'm sick. I would go to a GP, they would refer me. I did learn that myself. And I think it wasn't a waste for me. They did not ask me any questions in the NHS in any of my 3 interviews. But I didn't think it was a waste, because when I became a medical student there, it is of course really necessary to know about the system you're learning under. That being said, they did ask questions to some of my friends who were not international students. I don't know if that's a coincidence or because they were aware that I'm international, so I wouldn't know much. So I'm not sure. I can't say definitely learn it or definitely don't, but I guess I would on a safer side, because I'm not sure why they didn't ask me. Maybe it was just chance. I don't know.
So I think, I mean, I don't think they expect you to know like the details of how the NHS works, but I think it's more an understanding of the health system of the country that you want to become a doctor in, right? I mean, the fact that if you're a British resident, you're expected to serve a certain number of years as an NHS doctor, that you have to give back. And this is how the health system in that particular country is set up. And that is why most of these programs are so heavily funded by the government, because essentially they're sponsoring the next set of NHS doctors. So yeah, having a brief understanding of the system is important, but yeah, you're not going to be asked about the legislation or a law that was passed or, you know, anything, you know, very detailed. But yes, understand, have an appreciation of how it works and what does that mean for you as an international student is something that you should definitely be able to speak about.
Can I just quickly give it, sorry to interrupt you. Can I just quickly give an example of a question one of my friend got asked? Because my friend got asked something about what do you think are some of the challenges the NHS are facing or will face in the foreseeable future? So it was a question about like aging population and stuff like that. So it's not something, aging population of the UK and the NHS tackling that, and just how the NHS is underfunded at this point. So it's not something that you wouldn't know with a bit of research. It's not definitely, you don't need to know about like laws and legislations and stuff like that.
Yeah, super. I think it's just a general understanding of the medical system in that country, and yes, and able to kind of talk about trends and what that body would do in different situations. So Raashi and Anjali, there are so many questions about your grades and your subjects and everything in high school, your 10th and 12th grade. So can I get you both to just tell you know, the attendees about your grades in the 10th grade, your grades, and then what you got in the 12th grade boards, just to give them an indication of kind of, you know, what scores you need to study medicine. I do want to say that, you know, chemistry is very, very important. Actually, without chemistry, you cannot apply to medical school in the UK. It's a little bit more flexible for a pre-med program in the US. But there's like many questions about grades. So Anjali, do you want to go first? Just talk about your marks in the 10th and your 12th and what subjects you did.
Yeah. So in the 10th, I took science and I had to choose an optional. So I took physical education because I played competitive basketball since from the 5th to the 12th grade. So I went for a lot of national level tournaments and stuff. So physical education was a good fit for me. I think I got I don't remember like the exact, but I think it was like a 96.5 in my 10th boards, I think, somewhere around there. And then 12th boards, I actually didn't study for my 12th boards, but I think I got like a 91 or a 92. Because those did, and this is not to say don't study for it. This was just me, you know, backing off a bit, because by that time you'd really get your US acceptances. So I kind of knew that, you know, I was going to this college, and so it didn't really matter for me. So I didn't study much, but definitely study for it. But yeah, if you're applying to the US, definitely boards are not something to worry about, but that doesn't mean that you completely tank them. Obviously, please study for them. But yeah, I would say board marks don't really matter in the 12th grade if you're applying to US institutions, different things. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Anjali. And Raashi?
Yeah.
In the 10th, I did IGCSE. So I think I had 10 subjects, and I could be completely wrong, but I think I got 7 A stars and 3 A's. And my 3 A's were in like, I think English and Spanish and something. I think my sciences were all A stars, which is what I think they looked at, which would be my assumption. And I had to take biochem, physics, I had to take geography, some other stuff. It was just compulsory, but I think the option that I chose was business. I had an option between like business, drama, art, physical education, stuff like that. I took business. In the IB, I took biology, chemistry, and physics biology, chemistry, and economics at a high level. And I took English language and literature, Spanish, and mathematics at a standard level. So I had 6 subjects in total. And my condition, unlike the US, the UK, if you get an offer, it's a conditional offer based on your 12th grade exam. So my conditional offer was to get a 39 points in total, and I had to get a 7 and a 6 in biology and chemistry either way. And I think I got 42, and I got a 7 in biology and chemistry. For anyone who doesn't know, the IB point system is in each subject you get ranked on 7 points. So it's not like a percentage or anything. Each subject is 7 points, and you get points on that. They were my grades, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Raashi. There were so many questions about that, so I had to ask. I hope that helps the attendees understand the kind of, you know, academic profile you do require to be a pre-med or a medical student. The other question that I have is, you know, just a year ago, the Indian government announced that if you're an Indian citizen, you know, you need to do the NEET exam, even if you study medicine abroad at the undergrad level. There's so many questions about that, and you know, as an IB student, it's so hard to do all 3 sciences and math, and so then it's really hard to be, you know, able to sit the NEET, even if you wanted to. So, Raashi, did you sit it or not? And Anjali, go ahead, Raashi.
You can go first. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is a very, very intense topic for me, because they introduced this rule like 2 months before the NEET, and I had like no time to prepare, and registration was shut by then, so I couldn't even do anything about it. So I did not sit the NEET. One thing I can say for sure is the UK government and UK universities and anyone in the UK does not care about the NEET. This is an Indian government requirement that you need the NEET to go and study abroad if you want to come back to India and practice after that. I'm not sure if I want to come back to India, so I do want to have the option completely open. So I don't really know how I'm going to get around with this rule. Will they make an exception for me? I'm not sure, and I'm stressed about it. That being said, I have friends in the year below me, and they took biology, chemistry, and physics. Like the IB has started to allow people to get a special diploma to take all 3 sciences just because of this NEET requirement situation. So it's not impossible to do it if you're taking the IB in terms of the IB itself. In terms of like pressure and stuff, I'm sure it's manageable because one girl in my grade did it as well. She was my friend, and she did it for fun. And she was fine. She enjoyed it. So I guess it's not impossible.
Okay, thanks, Raashi. What about you, Anjali?
Yeah. So, and I think I'm just going to tie this back to a question that I see about asking me why I did the non-medical career abroad instead of doing the medical career here. So the main reason is that I did not know in the 11th and 12th, I knew I wanted to go into healthcare. I did not know whether I wanted to pursue medicine and be a doctor. So I did not take the NEET exam because I knew that if I wasn't sure and then I ended up going to medical school in India, I wouldn't be able to come back from that, like I would have to, if that's not something, if I wasn't sure that I wanted to do it, I didn't want to throw myself into it because obviously medicine is super competitive and it's a hard profession, medical school is hard. And I didn't know if I wanted to throw myself into that in India, if that's not what I wanted to do. I really wasn't sure. And so going abroad was a better option for me because I really got to explore my options and see what I wanted to do. So no, I did not take the NEET.
Okay, thank you so much, Anjali. I'm just quickly going through the questions. I think we have time for one more question. Okay, so someone's asking Anjali a specific question. What made you choose the non-medical career abroad versus medical career in India?
Oh, I think I just touched on this. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to do medicine. So I didn't want to throw myself into it right after high school because if that's something I didn't want to do, I would have had to, struggle.
Okay, and I think another great question for you, Anjali. I mean, I learned something, while you were talking that you're a national level basketball player. How did you manage that competitive sport and academics? I think that's a great question.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I don't know how I did it, but I would definitely, so it was easy for me until the 10th grade because it was, ICSE, which is hard, but it definitely gets much harder in ISC where I took physics, chemistry, math, biology, and did competitive sports. It's all about time management, because I was out for maybe 3 weeks at a time and I would miss so much and I had to come up, I was still studying when I was out. If I was in Karnataka for a national level basketball tournament, I had my books. I had to do the work. It's really that balance, and you have to be on top of everything. And I know that's pretty easy to say, but you just need that motivation if you wanna be on top of it and really, excel in both. So I would say manage your time super well, and if you're passionate about it, it's definitely going to come easier to you, whether it's basketball or what you're studying.
Okay, so thank you both so much. I think we've run out of time, but before we end, I'm going to ask you both to give one piece of advice to prospective students this year, or students who are looking to apply to medical school in the UK or a pre-health program in the US. If you can just, given the situation, it's very demotivating sometimes and it's challenging times, but if you could both just give us one piece of advice to help these students who are looking at applying to medicine or pre-health abroad, that would be great. Anjali, why don't you start?
Yeah, I can go first. This is kind of broad advice, because of Corona, people have not got the opportunities and everyone's really worried. And Corona might be able to take away your opportunities, but it doesn't take away your passion. So if you're passionate about something, write about it, write about what you learned. And another piece of advice is reflect on everything you do. You won't realize how important that is until you're writing an application and you go back to your reflections and you're just like, wow, I completely forgot, that this happened, or I got so much out of something. So to get the best out of something, reflect on it, whether it's a journal or just in your head, or whether it's just a few notes.
Thanks, Anjali. That's great advice. What about you, Raashi?
I think I have to agree with Anjali. That was really, really good advice. For me, I think it's like you said, it's quite a low time right now. But one thing that I think applicants don't know that they should know is that everyone wants you to succeed, like including people like your admissions officers and including people who are taking your interviews, people who are reading your application. They don't want to read it to dismiss it. They want to read it to accept you. Like everyone's positively motivated to want you and accept you. Be passionate, show your passion, and don't feel like you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for success. And everybody wants to see you succeed, including everyone in the application process who you've never met and don't know, who are just reading your application. They want you to succeed. So I think it's good to have that positive mentality while you're writing your application.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add something to that really quick, just one thing. Don't be afraid to take risks. And what I mean is, if you're scared, you're going to email a professor, he isn't going to respond, do it. Reach out to people, build that network, get to know people, and don't be afraid to do that. because you might not realize what, one person and one connection with them can get you so far, and you can learn so much. So don't be afraid to take risks is another piece of advice I would give.
So thank you so much, Anjali and Raashi. Unfortunately, we're already a few minutes late, and thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing all this valuable information and your journeys with us.